Welcome to the Matt Logan Show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are going to talk about how guns save lives today on the show, aren't we, Craig?
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here, dude.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. We've had, we won't get into it a lot yet, but we've had a lot of messages, and hopefully people will be excited to see you.
Hopefully.
And still angry with me. But anyway, that's what we're going to talk about on the show today, that guns save lives. The Second Amendment is under fire. Supreme Court has come out and said that, you know, they're going to defend the Second Amendment. Senator Todd Young of Indiana submits for a congressional honor for the armed bystander at Greenwood Mall. That is something that he has gotten a ton of criticism for. Obviously, we are talking about earlier this month, about the middle of the month, I guess, Mr. Dickin, Elisha is how I think we say his name. He was armed.
Yep.
Legal. And a gunman comes in. Unfortunately, 3 people died that day. Mm-hmm. And then 3 bystanders. And then he drew his weapon within seconds, and he shot and killed the assailant.
Correct. Guns
save lives. A lot of people are going to be pretty unhappy about what I just said, but I got to thinking, Craig, and in England, 46,265 people died by knives in 2019 or 2020. I think they overlap, it looks like, but in a year's time, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, England is one of the UK is one of the places that ban like almost all guns. You can't really have them. The point of that is that people kill people.
Evil will find a way.
That's right. And I own a few guns, not a ton of them, but I believe in the Second Amendment. I think that the Founding Fathers had a lot of foresight in saying this is not about hunting, this is about defending yourself against enemies, foreign and domestic, and things like that. As we get going here too, I just want to compare numbers to numbers, right? So knife, let's define what a knife is. They actually define it in this article from Reuters, and it is a sharp object. So they call it a knife or a sharp instrument, I should say. That's exactly what they call it. Makes sense. But let's look at the U.S. and what they do for gun deaths, and that is a number that is very similar in comparative years. It was a little bit harder to find numbers out of England, just probably that doesn't matter as much anyway because we're in the U.S. and that's what we're going to talk about. But a lot of people say, guns aren't killing people in the U.K. So here's the stat. 45,222 people died from what are called gun-related injuries. 2020 again. This is directly from the CDC. Let's break that down a little bit further, though, Craig. 54% of all of those gun-related deaths were suicides. 24,292 out of the 45,000 were unfortunate suicides.
Yeah, it's a lot of suicides.
And so you see, a lot of these celebrities, and they're talking about how horrible the U.S. and guns are, and they're saying how good the U.K. is and different things along those lines, when the U.K. actually in comparative year had a higher rate of knife. Essentially, it increased. Knife homicides increased by 28%. Where's the year here now? I guess maybe the year isn't on here.
While you're looking for that.
Excuse me, 51% higher than compared to 2011. So in 10 years, it increased by double.
And that begs the question of why. And I've watched and read up on a lot of articles when getting ready for this show, and even looking at the increases in the U.S. not from 2000 to 2020, but from like 1920 all the way, every decade. And it is amazing. There might be 10 or 20 quote mass shootings in a decade, and all of a sudden, I think starting in the 70s or the 80s, it increased a huge amount, to put us where we are today. And the question is why. The guns have always been there. They've always been available. In fact, they were more available back in the day. Kids would bring a gun to when I was in high school in the 90s. Kids would bring guns to school for some of the classes, some of the sports biology classes. And God forbid you do that now.
They used to teach like sharpshooting essentially back in, I think, the 50s.
Yeah, and gun safety.
40s, 50s, gun safety, yeah. Right. In school, public school.
Correct.
And there were no shootings. So I don't have the stat in front of me, but I've talked about this before, and people don't like it. But in somewhere around 1927, Bath Township, Michigan, is still, to date, the highest school massacre. And it wasn't with guns. It was literally with dynamite.
Wow.
And, they talk about the mass shootings. Guns, sure, they can probably produce quicker results in the unfortunate wrong direction, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that people are still doing things that are evil with other things. Homicides in the U.S. used to be hammers, highest. I don't know if it is. I should have looked.
Is it Jerry Jones? Or is that the owner of the Dallas Cowboys? The guy that had the cult down in South America. He killed over 900 people with Kool-Aid.
Right.
Evil will find a way.
Yeah.
And
cyanide-laced Kool-Aid.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if you take away the guns, something else is going to be used. Hammers, knives, cyanide, and Kool-Aid. So, and I mean, we could have hours-long conversations about gun control, and the founding fathers are right. It's to protect oneself from other people, evil, or our own government.
Right.
It was the number 2 law for them behind freedom of speech. That's how important it is.
Yeah.
It's not just something that we can sweep under the rug.
The thing with Mr. Dickin, too, from Indiana, a lot of people pointed out, and it's a fact, but pointed out that he was carrying his gun on a premises that said he shouldn't carry a gun, right?
Yep.
And so, which is really interesting and frankly asinine to me because, look, how many people would have died if he wasn't there carrying and then took action? Most gun owners in the United States, I mean, not all of them, but most gun owners in the United States take it very seriously. Absolutely. They're trained. Mm-hmm. They know what the capacity that their guns have. Mm-hmm. And it's not just something that, oh, cool, I can have a gun, so I'm going to have it. That's pretty rare.
Right. I, again, in researching this, I had found a video clip. It was from a Joe Rogan episode.
Sure.
And it was a gentleman that he actually shot somebody robbing the store that was armed as well.
I've seen it.
Did you see this?
Yes.
And they had one of the best analogies I've seen in the argument. And it's comparing a conceal and carry to a driver's license. If you're on your own property, you can drive your car anywhere you want on your property. But if you want to drive it off of your property in the public area, you have to have a driver's license to do that. But your driver's license doesn't control what vehicle you have.
Right.
As long as you qualify and test through to get the license, you're free to have whatever you have. So compare that to a gun. If you get the permit to carry, the government should not be able to dictate what you carry as long as you're legal to carry it. You can have a gun on your own property without having a license to do that.
Right.
But as soon as you step off of your property, you have to be licensed. So I thought that was a really interesting analogy. I had never heard that before, but I think it puts it into perspective when people are trying to ban certain types of guns and whatnot. People will find ways to do destructive behavior. So you can limit bump stocks or magazine capacity. People are still going to find a way. Okay, so you get rid of a 30-round magazine, so you tape two 10-round magazines back to back. Problem solved. So
yeah, and like you said, evil will do evil things. It's pretty simple.
The people following the rules aren't the ones you need to worry about. You're just if you ban guns, you're gonna take the guns out of the good people's hands. Obviously, people breaking the law aren't gonna follow that rule.
There's a very loose statistic that says, I believe it's anywhere. Each year is a little different. They throw it out there, but each year approximately 1.2 million to 2 million. Evil things are thwarted because of guns, essentially. You never know the outcome because the gun was there and involved, whether it would have been just a robbery or whether it had been a robbery murder or any of those kinds of things. But guns save lives. That's truly the reality of it, because the guns in the good hands are people who respect them, who also respect other people.
Right.
And that's, I think, the biggest difference for me. It's interesting to me when, I can't remember his name. Richard Branson is who it was. He came out and talked about how the U.S. was, the gun just a few days ago.
Infatuated with guns?
In that he, all these gun deaths. And, of course, they don't break down the numbers. They just say 45,000 people, each year, blah, 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 die of guns. Well, unfortunately, do guns make suicides more successful? Probably, which is extremely unfortunate. But what does that say? We should probably look at some mental health things and try to head it off way before that, because there are still other types of suicides, a lot of them, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So the reality is that they're only looking at the number that they want, right? And he didn't compare it to his own country when they actually had like 1,000 more deaths by knife.
Right.
Let's talk about population.
Right.
Population
England's
in the
about
United
20%
States.
of the U.S.
Yeah. And so if we look at those things, it's significantly higher.
Right.
So my point of that is like, let's look at the individual. Let's hold the individual accountable. Let's make sure if we're seeing things as people, we talk to the individual. We get the individual help if they're weird behavior or whatever else, or we think, boy, they're buying an awful lot of guns, or they're things like that. So it's a tough one because people are split.
It's a tough one, but it's cut and dry. It's their number 2 law.
Right, and it's a tough one. What to do, like how to handle a person. Yep. What's the right solution? Banning guns is not going to do anything. We can look at Chicago. Exactly. You can take out the big cities that have the most strict gun laws. You take them out of the United States. In the United States is like 180 something in homicides.
Gun violence. Yep.
Just homicides.
Right, and it's like.
And so
9 of the 10 cities.
But now we're like in the top 10.
Right. Because of a handful of cities.
Yeah.
Couple handfuls.
With the strictest gun laws.
Correct.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes.
I think it does too. You know what? I want Eli, let's call him Eli, Mr. Dickin. I want him, I want to hang out with him, man. I want to be in the same area, people like that. Because that he values life and not just his own.
Absolutely.
22-year-old, wow.
That's an incredible shot. That was an incredible 10 shots. Whether he was 30 yards or 40 yards with a handgun.
Yeah. That's
an unbelievable shot. And the fact that no bystanders were hit, and he hit mass 8 of 10 shots.
Yeah.
That is marksman level.
And it's amazing to me. It's like people, along with saying, well, Eli shouldn't have had a gun in the mall. You're not supposed to have a gun in the mall. Well, the bad guy Okay.
The bad guy shouldn't have had a gun either.
So where do which is a very disingenuous argument from a person like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I've seen on Twitter and some things, well, why did he need to pump 10 rounds out? Well, let's see. Do you want him to get back up and start shooting someone again, or do you want to make sure that he's incapacitated
You
or
stop the
gone?
threat. You stop the threat,
yes.
period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's a threat to little kids. That's, all of it. So,
right. And it's a mall. There were
I
children
applaud him.
all over the place.
Yeah. Exactly. Teenagers and.
Yep.
I was driving through the day after that happened, actually, Indianapolis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was all over the radios, of course, and
I bet.
locally, but national news, it didn't really do much. Got a lot of criticism nationally.
Of course, because media pumps their agenda.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things I researched on this, too, that, Florida, there was 3 or 4 different things where people came in with guns to do harm, and they were stopped by good people with guns. And I don't know how you want to word that, but it literally saved people's lives. It actually happened in Chicago too, one of the things that I had looked up.
Law-abiding citizens saved lives.
Right.
Then they stepped up to the plate instead of cowered outside.
Yeah.
Cower
outside, Uvalde.
That's where I was going.
400.
Yeah.
Boy.
Yeah. That raises a lot of red flags of why did they not go in.
Yeah.
Well, is there something behind that? Why were they held outside the building?
Right. It's weird. I don't want to go down those conspiracies. We've talked about that before, that I didn't really believe in conspiracies until 2020. Mm-hmm. And then you start seeing all the different things that are going on. And, in all the lies, significant lies, literally with stuff in 2020, Fauci just came out a couple days ago or yesterday that he said he never recommended to lock the country down. And it's like, and so then they played a clip of him saying that, I recommended to the president that we lock the country down.
Right.
And it's so unbelievably hypocritical. It's insane. I don't understand why. And especially with, the media and stuff that we have nowadays, everybody's recording everything. And let alone he's doing this in interviews.
That's exactly what I was going to say is if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said.
Right.
If you lie, you better remember your story. There's clips from the 80s of Fauci contradicting what he's done now, and President Biden and probably President Trump, former President Trump. Tell the truth, and you don't have to keep your story straight.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get busted every time, because there's always somebody that has the time to prove you wrong.
Right.
And if you're wrong, they're going to find it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's the way the country was set up.
Yeah.
100% transparent.
Yeah.
So
and
guns save lives. That's it, man. They do.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Make sure that you hammer out a share, hammer the like button, and comment on Craig's hair. See you next time.